Hello and welcome to the newsroom. Breaking this hour, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says talks involving Ukraine, Russia and the United States in Abu Dhabi remain difficult but are continuing. Speaking in Kyiv, Zelensky said negotiators are covering sensitive issues and will brief him in detail soon. He stressed that Ukraine remains committed to dialogue even as it pushes for strong and lasting security guarantees. Zelensky said the goal is to end the war in a way that prevents any future aggression by Russia. According to Zelensky, 157 Ukrainian soldiers have now returned home, bringing relief to their families. This comes as, in a major breakthrough, the United States, Ukraine and Russia have agreed to exchange 314 prisoners. Let's listen in.
Буде наступна зустріч найближчим часом. Щодо характеру розмови і про що говорили? Говорили про все. Вважають, що інформація дуже сенситивна, хочуть приїхати і мені доповісти детально. Важливо, що процес йде, хочеться більш швидких результатів. Ну, якщо наступна зустріч є, значить є шанс щодо продовження діалогу, який, безумовно, дуже хочу, щоб привів до закінчення. Сьогодні обмін, я вітаю всі сім'ї, які зустрінуть своїх близьких, рідних вдома найближчим часом. Це дуже добре, 157 воїнів України. Щодо характеру розмови і про що говорили? Говорили про все. Вважають, що інформація дуже сенситивна, хочуть приїхати і мені доповісти детально. Тоді я буду вже з вами комунікувати, розуміючи, де ми знаходимося. Важливо, що процес йде, хочеться більш швидких результатів. Ну, якщо наступна зустріч є, значить є шанс щодо продовження діалогу, який, безумовно, дуже хочу, щоб привів до закінчення війни.
We are now being joined by Meher Khurana, who is our reporter, reporting live to us from the newsroom for NewsX World. Thank you so much for joining us. Meher, what more can you tell us about this?
Well, yes, Ellie, the second day of the trilateral talks between Russia, United States and Ukraine have just ended, and the talks took place in Abu Dhabi. But let's not shift our focus from the strikes that have been taking place on the ground. Now, as diplomacy continues, the strikes are not stopping, and strikes have been taking place from both the ends, Russia and Ukraine. And it's important to note that overnight strikes have taken place from Russia's side, and Kyiv's mayor has confirmed these strikes, and he said that 2 people were wounded in these attacks. Now, residential buildings were damaged in one district, and debris fell over an office and caused fire in another, and windows were shattered at kindergarten. Now, the debris landed near local shopping centers as well. The Ukraine Air Force has reported that Russia launched 2 ballistic missiles and 183 drones at Ukraine overnight, and Ukraine's air defenses say that they have managed to down or suppress 156 of these targets. Now, in addition to the injuries, 1 man was also injured in a surrounding region of Kyiv. Now, President Zelensky, in one of his speeches, has recently given a rare official update on the human cost of the war. Zelensky has stated that 55,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed since February of 2022, since the war began. But on the other side, Ukraine continues to strike the high-value military targets inside Russia. The Ukrainian General Staff announced that in January alone, it carried out a series of strikes on Kapustin Yar missile launch site, which is located in the Caspian Sea. Now, moving back to diplomacy, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has recently held a press briefing in Kyiv, where he has stated that the discussions remain challenging, with the negotiators tackling highly sensitive issues. While he did not provide all details publicly, he's emphasized that these talks are ongoing and he will fully brief his team in the coming hours. Now, he described the talks in Abu Dhabi as difficult but also constructive at the same time. He's also underlined that Ukraine remains committed to dialogue even as it pushes for strong and lasting security guarantees to prevent any future aggression from the Russian side. Now, he's stressed that any resolution must ensure that Russia has no incentive to launch similar attacks against Ukraine or European states in the future. Now, these talks follow 2 days of intensive negotiations in UAE, which was brokered by the United States. While progress has been slow, there has been a significant breakthrough today. And the breakthrough is that the first major prisoner exchange has taken place in several months. A total of 314 prisoners have been exchanged between Russia and Ukraine, and of these, 157 Ukrainian soldiers have returned home, bringing relief to their families across the country. And on the other hand, the Russian Defense Ministry has also reported that the same number, 157 servicemen and 3 civilians, have been returned to them and are now in Belarus receiving medical care. Now, this swap was brokered by US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and US President Donald Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. And while Witkoff has noted that significant work remains regarding a final peace deal, the exchange is seen as a good faith signal between both Moscow and Kiev. Now, President Zelensky had called this exchange very important and expressed his congratulations to the families and who will soon reunite with their loved ones. Now, the prisoner swap is seen as a key confidence-building measure as both sides look to maintain momentum in these talks. Now, Zelensky also indicated that Ukraine is ready to negotiate further exchanges, including the potential swapping of drones for air defense missiles and fighter jets. Now, this signals a willingness to engage in creative solutions from the Ukrainian side. Now, meanwhile, the United States has announced the re-establishment of high-level military-to-military dialogue with Russia. Now, this comes after this meeting has taken place in Abu Dhabi that involved senior Ukrainian and Russian military officials as well. Now, according to the US-European Command, the renewal channel will provide consistent communication between the militaries, which is a step aimed at reducing the risk of escalation amid tensions that are going on and prevailing in the battlefield. Now, both sides have continued to ensure stability and prevent misunderstandings. And despite the productive talks and these tough talks that have been taking place in Abu Dhabi, a breakthrough apart from this prisoner swap has not been reached yet. And peace is still a big question as we've just witnessed strikes on the ground again. Over to you.
Thank you, Meher. Don't go too far as we will be joining back with you very shortly. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have seized 2 oil tankers with their foreign crews in Gulf waters for smuggling fuel. The seizures comes amid the heightened tensions after Washington dispatched a naval group to the region following Tehran's deadly response to anti-government protests. According to reports, more than 1 million litres of smuggled fuel have been found on board of the 2 vessels. Meanwhile, Iran's commander of IRGC's 2nd Naval Zone has responded. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
این با توجه به اشراف کامل نیروی دریایی سخابر خلیج فارس منطقه دوم نیروی دریایی مثل اشرافی که داشت متوجه تردد 2 فروند شناور عامل قاچاق سوخت شد با حکم قضایی این 2 شناور تقریبا در محدوده استفاده جزیره اقتدار جزیره فارسی
According to reports, Iranian and US officials have confirmed that a meeting between their countries would be held in Muscat, the capital of Osman. However, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi announced that the nuclear talks are now scheduled for Friday in Muscat and said that he is grateful to his Omani brothers for making all the necessary arrangements. We are now being joined again by Meher in our newsroom. Meher, what more can you tell us on this story and what other information do you know?
Well, yes, Ellie, our recent reports have just told us that the US delegation has now landed in Oman, Muscat, Oman, and this is the location where the talks are set to take place tomorrow at 10 a.m. Local time. Now, apart from that, a lot of statements have come in, as you just mentioned, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi's comments. We also have other comments from regional leaders, and let's dig deep into some of these comments. Now, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has also visited Oman, in fact, and he stated that he's expressing great concern over a potential de-escalation in Iran, and he's spoken at a press conference where Merz has urged Tehran to stop what he described as aggressive actions and engage in negotiations instead. Now, he stressed that everything possible to promote stability should be taken care of and prevent the conflict in the region. Now, US officials, including Jared Kushner, who's Trump's son-in-law, as well as US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, have arrived, and these talks are scheduled for tomorrow. But Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has instead criticized Merz's comments, and he said that he's called them reflective of political naivety. And Tehran has consistently framed foreign pressure on its nuclear program as an external attempt to interfere in domestic and regional affairs of their country. Now, Egypt has also been actively involved behind the scenes. The Egyptian Foreign Ministry has reported intense communications between its officials and counterparts in Qatar, Iran, Oman, and the United States to ensure that tomorrow's meeting moves forward constructively. Now, Egypt emphasized the importance of a peaceful settlement based on mutual respect and warned that the failure to act now could further destabilize the region. Now, this is not the first time US and Iranian officials have met. In fact, they've met in Oman in last June of 2025, where Washington and Tehran have held similar talks in Muscat, and they've attempted to revive elements of the 2015 nuclear agreement. That at the same time, discussions were stalled, obviously, after Israel attacked Iran's nuclear sites and briefly draw US into the military operation as well, Midnight Hammer, that took place. Now, since then, relations have obviously remained tense, and Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has repeatedly warned that any US military strike would trigger a regional conflict. Now, in his statements earlier, Khamenei accused Washington of seeking to occupy Iran, and he's highlighted that Iran's resources and strategic position, according to him, are the reason why US is being motivated into this interference. He stressed that while Iran does not seek conflict, it will obviously reply and respond forcefully if it was ever attacked. Now, however, the US continues to signal that diplomacy remains open, and these talks, as you can see, are scheduled for tomorrow, but with limited patience. Now, Washington's ambassador to NATO, Matthew Whitaker, has told reporters that while US wants Iran to step back from potential confrontation, Trump will not be patient forever. Now, President Donald Trump has expressed a desire for a satisfactory deal that prevents nuclear weapon development, but has not set a firm timeline or a guarantee for the same. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has stressed that any talks must address not only Iran's nuclear program, but also its ballistic missile capabilities, which Tehran has ruled out discussing for now. Now, Rubio has warned that meaningful progress requires addressing the full spectrum of Iran's military and nuclear activities taking place. Now, regional actors are closely monitoring the situation. in the region, and Turkish President Erdogan has stated today that Turkey is doing everything possible to prevent US-Iran tensions from spiraling into a wider conflict. Now, Erdogan praised the ongoing diplomatic efforts that have been taking place, and called for leader-level talks to follow instead of delegations going to Oman and having negotiations there. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has also weighed in, and he said that Moscow is not imposing itself as a mediator, but is simply discussing the situation. Lavrov has described the situation as explosive for both Iran and the broader Middle East, and has said that this could trigger by any misstep taking place. He's emphasized that Russia is prepared to support implementation of agreements that could be reached. Now, on the military front, obviously tensions remain high, and the US has already deployed significant forces to the Middle East, including its warships and USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group, which is operating in the Arabian Sea. Now, previous talks have stalled over disagreements of the nuclear inspection, ballistic missiles, and regional influence. Now, for these talks scheduled tomorrow between the United States and Iran, we will have to wait and see if any outcome or breakthrough is reached, and we will be tracking this news very closely as all eyes remain on Oman tomorrow. Over to you, Ellie.
Thank you, Meher. Stay with us as we will be back to you shortly. We have some breaking news now. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has said that Cuba is prepared to hold dialogue with the United States, but not under pressure, after months of threats from US President Donald Trump. Diaz-Canel has added that the countries have not yet established a bilateral dialogue, but they have had some exchanges of messages that were linked to the highest levels of Cuba's government. Listen in.
A un diálogo sobre cualquiera de los temas que se quiera debatir o dialogar. ¿Con qué condiciones? Sin presiones, bajo presiones no se puede dialogar. Sin precondicionamiento, presiones, bajo presiones no se puede dialogar. Sin precondicionamiento.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer addressed mounting scrutiny over his appointment of Peter Mandelson as ambassador to Washington, following revelations of Mandelson's ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Starmer expressed frustration that the focus had shifted from government achievements to the controversy surrounding Mandelson. He clarified that before Mandelson's appointment, he had no reason to believe Mandelson was lying about his relationship with Epstein. He also emphasized the importance of accountability, asserting that no one should hold public offense if they cannot meet the test of honesty. In response to calls for transparency, Starmer committed to releasing documents related to Mandelson's appointment as soon as possible. He ended his remarks by offering an apology to the victims of Epstein. Listen in.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again. But I also want to say this. In this country, we will not look away. We will not shrug our shoulders. And we will not allow the powerful to treat justice as optional. We will pursue the truth. We will uphold the integrity of public life. And we will do everything within our power and in the interests of justice to ensure accountability is delivered. And the answers given to those questions were intentionally intended to create the impression that Mandelson barely knew Epstein, deliberately to create that impression. I had no reason at that stage to think that was anything other than the truth, and therefore we proceeded. We found out what he was up to in the aftermath of the '08 crash, when most of the government and most of the country was doing its level best to make sure people didn't lose their jobs, their livelihoods, and their savings. And at that time, he chose to disclose sensitive secrets to Epstein, almost simultaneously as receiving them. And that is what I meant when I said earlier about the deceit and the standards that I stand for in public life. Yes, at the time I appointed him, I got answers from him which I believed to be true. He painted a picture of barely knowing Epstein. I didn't know that was lies at the time. I regret I didn't know. I've apologised for the fact that I appointed him in the first place, having believed those lies.
We are now being joined by Ayanaba Banji, who is in our newsroom reporting live for NewsX World. Thank you so much for joining us here. What more can you tell us on this story?
Thank you, Ellie. We just heard UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer speaking on Mandelson and Mandelson's ties with Epstein. He has come out, has apologized to the victims of Epstein. He has also announced that he will be releasing the files which would consist of the information that he used to vet Mandelson before he was appointed to be the UK ambassador to the US. It's also very important to note that UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer had stated that he knew of the ties between Epstein and Mandelson, but he also alleged that he did not know the extent of the ties that were between Epstein and Mandelson. Right now, through the recently released files, we have come to know that Peter Mandelson was in contact with Epstein till 2019, before Epstein's alleged suicide. According to the recently released emails, Epstein used to give Mandelson money through direct contact or through indirect bank account. According to reports, between 2003 and 2004, Epstein has transferred almost $75,000 to accounts linked to Mandelson or Mandelson's partner. It has also been reported that during the 2008-2009 financial crisis, Epstein sent £10,000 or more than $20,000 if we connect it to inflation, and the money was sent to Mandelson's partner, De Silva. It has also come out through the recently released files, that it was not just about money, but Mandelson also used to share incredibly sensitive information with Epstein. According to the recently released emails, back in May of 2009-2010, Mandelson had emailed Epstein saying, quote, 500B euros complete, which after just a day after the email was sent, a 500 billion euro bailout was provided to English banks during the financial crisis of 2008. There was another email which was uncovered back in 2009, where Mandelson had emailed Epstein stating, quote unquote, he is finally out. Just hours after the email, former UK Prime Minister Brown resigned. So these reports draw a clear line, a clear connection between Epstein and Mandelson. It's also very important to note that Epstein was first convicted of soliciting minors for prostitution back in 2008, and the very fact that Mandelson remained in contact with Epstein over the next few years does make us ask a lot of questions. And it's not Mandelson at this moment. According to recent reports, the World Economic Forum has announced a probe into World Economic Forum's president and CEO, Brende. Now, according to recently released emails, Brende was in close association with Epstein till 2019. In 2018 and 2019, Brende and Epstein had 3 dinners. In 2018, Brende also talked to Epstein about his vision for World Economic Forum, where Epstein said that he believes that World Economic Forum, quote unquote, can be the next United Nations. Also, in these emails, we also found out that Epstein was talking to the former US leader Larry Summers, and Larry Summers back in 2018 was sad that he was not invited to the World Economic Forum being held, and then Epstein had mailed him asking if he should ask his dear friend Brende, unquote, if they could invite Larry Summers to the World Economic Forum summit. So these are all the latest information that have come out after the release of Epstein files. Now, it's also very interesting, I would like to say, how the UK public is reacting to the unearthed truth as compared to how the US public is reacting. Even though UK Prime Minister's name is not in the Epstein files, the UK public is scrutinizing the UK Prime Minister as compared to US, where US's President Donald Trump's name has been mentioned in Epstein file multiple times, but there is no such scrutiny that's happening around the US President Donald Trump. With that, I'll give it back to you, Ellie, back to the studio. Thank you.
Thank you, Aynaba. Kremlin spokesperson says Russia is still ready to talk if US responds to its proposal on extending nuclear arms limits. Moscow says it regrets the expiration of the New START treaty, the last remaining nuclear arms pact between Russia and the United States. The New START treaty is a nuclear arms control agreement signed in 2010 that limits how many nuclear warheads, missiles and bombers the US and Russia can deploy. The Kremlin says the end of the agreement leaves the world's 2 largest nuclear powers without any limits on their arsenals for the first time in more than 50 years. President Vladimir Putin had earlier offered to stick to the treaty's limits for another year if Washington did the same. But the US has not committed, with President Donald Trump pushing for a broader deal that includes China, an idea Beijing has rejected. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says Russia views the treaty's expiration negatively, but will act in a balanced and responsible manner, guided by national interest. With that, it's a wrap on the newsroom. Keep watching NewsX World for more breaking updates.